Alrighty, thank you very much for taking time out of your Monday whenever you're tuning into this, whether you're here with me live, so I'm doing this around 7:30 Eastern Time, 6:30 Central Time in the morning, or if you're watching after, I thank you for joining this breakdown. I'm going to spend about 15 minutes talking all about multiple waves of severe weather set to impact the United States as we go throughout the coming days. Make sure you're hitting that like button so this update hits the algorithm and gets out to more people. If you're new to the channel and you enjoy this update, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button, especially if you're watching this after and you weren't with me live. I'd love to have you for future live streams, but let's go ahead and jump right into it. Of course, you want to be staying tuned for future updates because, as you can see on that thumbnail on the left side of your screen, as we go beyond the end of a current severe weather outbreak that hit parts of the Ohio Valley and Mississippi Valley yesterday, and today is now closer to the east and Gulf Coast with at least isolated to scattered damaging winds, hail, and tornadoes, we're going to see a new severe weather event ramp back up to the west of where today's outbreak is going to conclude. So the one from the weekend into today will conclude closer to the eastern U.S. today. And then you can see back on over to the west, Tuesday through Thursday, starting in the plains, moving towards the Mississippi Valley, then eventually the Ohio Valley, almost like deja vu. We're going to see another outbreak moving on in, and that one could be even more intense for some zones, but I don't want anybody to panic. I'll give you all the latest details you need, and I will have a future video or live stream update, probably at some point either later today or into Tuesday or at both of those times to break down those severe weather days. But let's go ahead and start by giving you a look at my ONW severe scale for today, our March 31st of 2025, where I have painted a level 3 of 7 zone for severe weather from parts of New York, Massachusetts, parts of Connecticut and Rhode Island, all the way back down to the Gulf Coast, but the East Coast is in between there and all the way up through those states. Pretty much the entirety of Georgia, the entirety of the Carolinas, a lot of Virginia, and then on up into the Delmarva region. Going to be some of the zones where we have that highest threat for severe weather. I think the Storm Prediction Center, especially with their outlook yesterday, was definitely overdoing the specific tornado threat out of this event. There could definitely be at least a few tornadoes here and there, anywhere from Florida and surrounding zones all the way on up through the Carolinas and Mid-Atlantic. I don't expect this to be a widespread tornado event. In fact, I'm anticipating scattered damaging wind events over a broad area. We could see multiple clusters of storms, some more individual storms as well, but even the discrete ones look to mainly be producing 60-ish mile per hour wind gusts as their main hazard in those strongest cells. Widely scattered large hail could also be a threat today, with 1 to 2 inch diameter hail looking likely. Tornadoes will be a possibility, but I don't think they're the main thing on the table. Let's go ahead and jump on over now to Radar Omega. Timing. We have severe weather warnings ongoing here from some of these storms that are ongoing over parts of Louisiana and Mississippi as of when I'm doing this live stream on our Monday morning. From here, as we go throughout the morning, we're expecting these storms to continue pushing closer to places like New Orleans, Gulfport, Mississippi, Mobile, Alabama. We could definitely have at least an isolated tornado threat. Again, the tornado threat, even though it is not as high as I think the Storm Prediction Center has been highlighting at times, it is definitely still in existence, and you need to be on the lookout for a few twisters here and there. We'll probably see them in spotty fashion all over the southeast up into the mid-Atlantic based on the current forecast. You can see all the way on up through northern Alabama, we'll have to watch probably at least isolated damaging winds and severe weather as the northern fringes of the line left over from last night is expected to kick up. Now, one thing I do want to point out is that we're actually going to have a decent bit of instability allowed to move north into parts of the mid-Atlantic, central Appalachian, some of these zones, and points eastbound closer to the coast where we're going to have that severe weather risk today. You can see this general zone going untapped from North Carolina all the way on up to Pennsylvania, New Jersey, points in between, even a little bit further north from there. Very little in the way of rain showers or storms as we go throughout the morning. That's certainly going to allow for a possibly more untapped environment as we go into the afternoon. But you can definitely see at this point in time, we'll already probably be watching a severe weather event going on down to the south anyway. From western North Carolina back down to the western Florida Panhandle and points in between through eastern Alabama, western Georgia. Generally around the middle of the day is when you can expect that chance for isolated scattered severe weather. While this looks like mainly a line of storms, we could definitely see some embedded notches in it where we get that inflow and that tornado potential. You can see this model indicating even as we go into the afternoon, some point mid to late afternoon, through parts of Georgia and the Carolinas, we might see a little bit more of an elevated tornado threat with some of that discrete activity or more isolated storm coverage that develops ahead of the main line. Overall, though, line of storms, some cells ahead of it, that's going to be the main threat pushing through the middle of the afternoon into the evening down through parts of Georgia, the Carolinas, And overall, it looks like from the north of there, that's when we're going to start to see some activity popping on up in the mid-Atlantic sometime as we go past about 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern time, getting closer to 4, 5, 6. That's when we're going to start to see storms, especially ramping up. Not to say we couldn't see storms earlier, but just note based on this guidance, which it's going to have a pretty high success given the fact that we are literally within 12 hours of this happening. You can kind of get the idea there that not much will be going on other than an isolated storm or two anywhere from New Jersey back down to western Virginia by the time we go towards around 2 or 3 in the afternoon. From there, the storms really begin blowing up, and I think that's when we see more of a scattered severe risk with damaging winds. And some of these more isolated cells could definitely produce some hail. The tornado ingredients aren't going to be extremely intense up and down this line. The Storm Prediction Center is only highlighting about a 2 to a 5% chance of tornadoes within 25 miles of a point over a lot of this region. But again, keep in mind, while I'm not sold on the tornado threat for everyone, 2 to 5% chance, according to the experts, is still a chance of tornadoes. So you need to have a safety plan in place. And a lot of people are going to be commuting home through all this action up here through the mid-Atlantic this evening. That includes places like Richmond up to D.C., probably seeing them around or just before or after sundown, depending on exactly how these line up with the models. I think stuff begins weakening as the sun goes down tonight, but we could still see some severe storms anywhere from New York City back down to Wilmington, North Carolina, and points in between as we get closer to the nighttime frame. Once we see dusk occur and then beyond, we'll still be watching a line of heavy rain, maybe some gusty winds, especially pushing on through. Again, there's the evolution of this threat throughout the day today, or a general idea of how it's going to look. This model's not going to be perfect. Gives you a good general overview, though. You can see some storms through the southeast this morning. And then we start to see more of those storms firing on up in the mid-Atlantic today. While some of that activity does look discrete initially, I think a lot of these are going to be your typical type East Coast storms that bow out with some of the damaging winds, some of the hail, and, we always get that isolated chance for tornado out of those as well. So that's something we got to watch out for. That is the severe weather setup for today. But beyond today, we're going to have to move on and talk about the next system. But why not talk a little bit about that next system while we are already on here live, or if you're tuning in after, whenever you're watching this, of course, again, make sure you're hitting that like button so we get this information out to everyone. Let's play things out for you here. And you can see as we play things from this morning and then as we go into the afternoon and evening, we're going to be watching some storms getting off the East Coast as we go through our Monday, through our Tuesday night, and then by the time we go towards late Tuesday night into Wednesday, a new low pressure system is going to begin to evolve over parts of the central United States. Low pressure parking itself right around Nebraska into Iowa, with a cold front extending likely back down an associated dry line from Kansas into Oklahoma into northern Texas. As that occurs, I would anticipate the possibility for some severe weather really anywhere in this general zone, and that's why the Storm Prediction Center is kind of highlighting in broad area. Some of these storms will be in overnight fashion, and this is starting up as a storm system very similarly to this most recent outbreak that is wrapping up today. It started in the plains Saturday night. Then we saw more storms getting into points east as we got into Sunday. Very similar look. Storms begin around late evening into the night. And also on the northern side of the system, once again, we're going to be watching a more winter weather type of event. They get further north, it seems like, with every event. And unless we see some sort of major cool down, the general snow line continues pushing north. Rain all the way on up into southern Minnesota, southern Wisconsin, unless we start with a little snow. But this model indicating a pretty decent snowstorm, by the way, on up there into places like North Dakota, north central parts of Minnesota, and the northern third of Wisconsin into the upper peninsula of Michigan. That would be around April 2nd for that to really ramp on up. As we go through the day, April 2nd, I'll show you the environment in just a second, but it looks like a volatile setup for severe weather is pretty much going to line itself up right with the Mississippi Valley overall, but also curling back into East Texas. This looks so similar to this most recent event that we had just last night on our Sunday and Sunday night. It at least brought significant damaging winds and hail to a lot of zones. We did see some tornadoes, I'm sure, as well. So keep in mind that a very similar setup could mean very similar impacts, but this one might be even more favorable for some tornadoes and some discrete storm convection. So make sure you're on the lookout in this general zone where we're having that highest confidence in the stronger storms as we go into the day Wednesday, anywhere from southern Wisconsin and Michigan through Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Kentucky, Missouri, back down to eastern Texas into Louisiana and points in between. This looks like a very feisty event there. Of course, we'll talk more on specific impacts as we get closer. I don't have my ONW severe scale graphics for that just yet because, of course, I've been making them for this most recent event as of so far. Once we get beyond Wednesday, I think things become a little more uncertain, but we'll probably still have a lingering boundary, kind of a almost stalled boundary sitting near the Ohio Valley and Mississippi Valley. That could increase flood threats and continue at least some isolated scattered severe weather even as we go through Thursday and beyond that time frame over places like Arkansas, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and into Kentucky. And you can see, it looks like we'll see even more activity blossoming up from there possibly as we go down the line, and that could include more severe weather over even Dixie Alley, parts of the Mississippi Valley, into the Ohio Valley. It looks like a very active time, at least through the upcoming weekend, for some more possible severe weather. And it's something you definitely want to be keeping an eye on if you live in any of the possible impacted zones. Let me show you why this setup is very concerning and why it almost looks worse, if not already is guaranteed to be worse in some cases, than what we saw out of the last event. I don't want to really guarantee anything, so I take that back. But here's a general idea of what this looks like, and it's very strong setup, I can tell you that. The last storm system, the jet stream energy was pretty broad, right? There were a lot of greens and yellows if you're following along with my channel, indicating, 40 to 60 knot mid-level winds from the southwest to the northeast. This guidance is indicating that we're going to have a very strong belt of upwards of 60 to 70 to 80 knots of that strong southwest to northeast flow through the mid-levels of the atmosphere, 15 to 20,000 feet on up into the sky. That's going to be as we go out of Tuesday into Wednesday. It's around and on the leading edge of pieces of energy like this where we tend to get that best threat for severe weather. So again, that's why a big zone is probably going to have to watch that major severe weather outbreak potential once again as we go into Wednesday. And look at what's going to happen Wednesday with the low-level winds. This is what creates a wind shear. These winds are moving in from the south to the north, closer to the surface. I've talked about winds like this a lot in previous severe weather breakdowns, even back into 2024, as I started kind of making these breakdowns a little more complex here on the channel. If you've got that strong wind in the upper atmosphere kind of moving more like this, which is what I was just indicating, and then you've got the overlap of some of those winds with these more south to north winds closer to the surface, say towards closer to 5,000 feet in surrounding spots. That is called wind shear when you have the winds coming like this closer to the surface. You've got the trough further up in the atmosphere kind of moving a little bit perpendicular to it, if you want to say that, as opposed to parallel. And then you've already got kind of a natural rotation of the winds up in the atmosphere. Again, you can kind of see the orientation of these lines. I'll draw it on the screen for you. There's kind of your low-level wind flow, very much so almost due south to north. If we go back on over, let's even use the 300 millibar level of wind. Or, well, let's go back to that one. There we go. Look at the trough in the upper atmosphere. You can see how the lines are oriented more like that. So there's definitely some crossing of these winds as you go into the atmosphere. And again, that's going to help in elevating the tornado threat. I think we're going to have plenty of ingredients coming together. European model already indicating a broad field, a broad warm sector of energy, just like we had with this most recent system. That would probably pull that severe weather risk all the way on up, again, into places like the Ohio Valley, the Midwest, the Great Lakes. So as we go into Wednesday, again, I don't have my ONW severe scale graphics for this just yet, but I intend to either make a video later today. I'm really hoping to do that here on our Monday afternoon and evening. But if I don't have one today, definitely something into our Tuesday to cover this in more detail. Again, though, I would stay tuned, have notifications on so you don't miss that update whenever it comes. We'll probably have multiple of them through the coming days on this event. All severe weather hazards would be possible with a setup like this, especially with that deepening low pressure making its way right on up there through the Great Lakes, and then kind of having that extended area of lower pressure along that front all the way back down to the southwest. So that's all I have for this morning live stream update for our Monday. Let's see what we have in terms of questions. Let's see. So we have had a tornado possibly ongoing based on what I'm seeing this morning in the chat here, down in a place like Mississippi. I'm going to pull up the live radar, see what's going on. This probably won't benefit anybody watching later, but I'm glad I got that comment down below. Let's see if we can pull up the radar real quick and just see proof that we could at least have some spots of tornadoes as we go through the day today based on what's been going on already. Yeah, I will answer a few questions right now as we finish this stream. But that concludes my discussion part of the outlook. Let's see what we have. I'm trying to pull up Radar Omega radar because I've just been using the outlook for the future. Okay, I'm trying to find the storms and where the warnings are on them right now. Again, if you're watching this later, this doesn't apply probably anymore. This is morning activity as of 6:49 Central Time on our Monday morning. Severe thunderstorm warning. Yeah, there's a lot of severe warnings on all this activity. Oh yeah, so coming into Hattiesburg, we do have a tornado warning as of this morning. Yeah, very strong velocities on that. Let's look at that real quick. There we go. Very strong tornado possibly moving in as of this morning. We do have another tornado warning back down to the southwest of that into northeastern Louisiana as well. Mite City, Roseland. Again, though, if you're watching this later, tuning into this update later, I've already concluded the breakdown part of this stream. Let's see. Let's put on the correlation coefficient. Yeah, it's hard to tell if there's actually a tornado on the ground actively there. Certainly looks like it may be down there in the southwestern part of that warning box. Yeah, I think we got a little tornado as of this morning. Right in there. But anyway, make sure you're getting to a safe spot in a place like Hattiesburg, Mississippi if you're with me here live this morning. Otherwise, everything else I just covered was for the future. Oh yeah, we also do have a severe warning as of 6:50 Central Time this morning, and a tornado warning in places like Fayette, Berry, and then on up there into Winfield in Alabama. That being said, though, let's see if we have any questions about the upcoming outlook. Colton Andrews says, thoughts on Southwest Ohio Wednesday night. I certainly think you're in a setup for some significant severe weather there. Yeah, it looks like some of our stronger storms are going to move in probably as we go into the evening, and that could certainly help hinder the threat. But we'll have to keep a closer eye on that, and I'll be keeping you updated with, again, future videos. Hello and good morning to you, Brenda. Just kind of concluding the live stream now. If you want to watch it back, I'm literally about to hit the end stream button, and you will be able to watch everything back that I just covered. This has not been just like a severe weather coverage stream like it looks like. I was just looking at some of the ongoing warnings this morning to conclude it. But I just did a full forecast for today, as well as what's going to be going on as we go through the next few days with additional severe weather. I'll probably have another video or a live stream update on that either later tonight or into tomorrow, and hopefully both as we get closer. But with that being said, thank you everybody for tuning in. I appreciate everybody down in the chat, and I will see y'all in the next update.